Please give a very, very warm welcome to Howard Martin as he talks about Emergence 2013. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Very much appreciated. So I'm glad to be back. And I want to let you know that tonight it's a little bit special for me in many ways, in some ways. This will be the last time I'll do this presentation. The reason is this is my presentation I've used this year, and my speaking role started out in January in Australia. And since then, I've been many, many places on 3 continents. And tonight actually marks the last live event that I will do this year. So my goal is that I'm going to leave it all on the stage tonight and give you everything I can in hopes that we all together begin to create something that's very special and unique on this cold fall evening in the beautiful city of London. What I'd like to do now is invite you, and all of us, just to join together just for a minute and close your eyes. And what I'd like you to do now is just to shift your attention to the area of your heart, the area in the center of your chest. Just to focus your attention there, a very casual, gentle process of just focusing in the area of the heart. And with your focus there, I'd like you to breathe naturally and normally, but deeper than you normally would. And as you breathe, I want you to pretend as if your breath is flowing in and out right through the area of the heart, right through the center of your chest. It's called heart-focused breathing. I'd like you to continue to breathe that way through the area of the heart. And now what I'd like you to do is to feel the feeling of appreciation. Just appreciate the good things you have in your life. Make sure you appreciate yourself. I'd like you to radiate that appreciation outward now from the heart into this room to each other as we create an energetic field environment, heart-based, heart-intelligent field environment as a foundation for our evening. Okay, thank you very much. The simple thing that we just did can have profound effects, not only on our health, our well-being, our fulfillment, but also in how we serve the world and how we feed the energetic field environment and imprint that energetic field environment in ways that reflect back to us something new, something different. And I will expand upon that as we go through the evening. Vaz mentioned that I'm one of the founders of HeartMath. I go back a long way now. Doc Childry is the founder of HeartMath, and he's not a public figure, never has been, never will be. But Doc, myself, and others go way back now, over 40 years. Young men and young women interested in self-discovery, improving ourselves, staying out of jail, whatever it was about, you know. But working on ourselves from the inside out to see where things could go. And we came across the heart like a lot of people had, and we took it seriously. We dug in on it, we worked it, and it led to HeartMath. 15 years later. HeartMath, how many of you have heard of HeartMath before the event, right? So a lot of people have. We have a pretty big global footprint now. I'm really proud of what's happened, with our organization. We started it with nothing. We had our beliefs. We built it step by step from the ground up into a global organization today. My fulfillment in that has been wonderful because I never had an ambition to be a part of something like that or to be an author or a speaker or any of that. It just came about along the way from doing what we've been told a long time is to listen to and follow our heart. I took it seriously. And it's led to many things for me, and I hope that that kind of approach can lead to things for many, many people. Before I go any further, one more thing I'll explain about myself is that I've lived in California now for 23 years, but I'm originally from the South. Thank you very much. You just won me $20. A friend bet me $20 I couldn't make an English audience laugh. And, you know, I know the English don't think that Americans even speak proper English, right? Well, in America, the Americans don't think that I speak proper English. Well, here's where it gets twisty. Sometimes I'll go in a store or something and be, you know, talking to the clerk, and he'll look at me and go, "Are you from England?" It's $25. It didn't matter. But the theme of our night is about this year and where we are today and where things are moving. And I want to share what I can to you about where I see things and what's going on and about the emergence of this heart-based world that I clearly see happening. Often the world looks like this, doesn't it? A period of great transition, of high-speed change occurring. More change happening in less time than ever before in the history of the world, really. Super high-speed change. And we're going through a time period now where, in my opinion, we're moving through a dimensional shift in consciousness. We're moving from what I'd characterize as a baseline of third-dimensional consciousness. Duality, separation, ambition, survival, etc. Not all bad, though. Look at what it's built. Look at the beauty. When I ride through a city like London at night on the way to speak here, and I just see the majesty and the beauty of that creation in many ways. So it isn't all bad, but there are some limitations to that. There's a box around that kind of consciousness. But we're moving now into the fourth dimension of consciousness, and not only that, what makes this such a special time, we're taking a dimension and a half jump. We're moving into the higher ranges of the fourth dimension. This is not an overnight process. This is not a big bang thing. This takes time. My belief is it's about a 100-year period, a window of opportunity that we are in, that we're about halfway into. We've had some leading up to this. We've got more to go. But we're in this window of opportunity time to where we are creating a new world unlike any world we've ever seen before. I was in a little talk today at a small group, and I told them something. I said, I get asked all the time by people, like, what's the shift going to be? What's it going to look like? You know, I'm supposed to be like a futurist or something, right? And I say to them, I can tell you exactly what my answer to that is, and the answer is I don't know. Because it's different. It's not like the new that we're going to experience is the same thing we have today with new clothes on it. It's unlike what we've seen before. If you walked up to somebody in 1890 or something and said, there's new transportation coming, what do you think that's going to be? Well, the best that person could probably do at that time would be imagine a new buggy or a different horse. But he or she could not see the airline industry. And that's where we are today in terms of where we're moving to. So something new and exciting is happening, and it's taking a little time. It's not an overnight thing. Now, modern science is beginning to accept that we are indeed part of a vast web of connection that encompasses not only life on this planet, but the solar system and beyond. An energetic connectivity between all living systems. So as we sit here tonight, there's an energetic connectivity between all of us. And when I asked you to just close your eyes, do some heart-focused breathing, and activate a positive emotion like appreciation, it creates a change in that field environment. It connects us differently, energetically, and sets, again, the baseline for us to have an experience together this evening. Here's a belief that I have. I believe that we all live in this field of energy that reflects back to us not just what we think in our minds, but especially what we feel in our hearts. And that when we put that out from the heart like that, with sincere, genuine appreciation for the good things we have in our life, for ourselves and for each other, it does imprint that field that then reflects back to us something different, a different perception of ourselves, of reality, a different level of magnetic draw towards the things that are going to be fulfilling to us. Not only that, my belief is it imprints that field in ways that then influences the general field as a whole and helps others. So the little exercise we did right then was an act of service not only to ourselves, but to humanity as a whole and to the earth itself. Right? But last year was the year of 2012. You guys remember that? Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? This year of great opportunity and great portent of all this stuff that was going to happen, and all tied to things like Mayan calendar predictions and planetary alignments and all this. And a lot of people were expecting something really, really big to go down, and we'd all get verification that all this hard work we've been putting in all these years, we were right all along, and the shift was happening, and we'd all get to see it. Others thought it was going to be apocalyptic, the end of something, the end of the world. And everybody kind of sort of came out in the middle of that. And most people tried to have a relatively mature approach about it, feeling like, well, you know, I understand that. It's probably not going to be all that. But then, you know, we probably get some things that will happen, etc. Then the December 21st thing in 2012 came along. And for most people, it was a day like any other. And then life went on. So one reason to not do this talk much longer is the fact that, hey, a lot's happened. 2013 is, you know, just moved right along, and the speed of change has accelerated every single week and every single month since then. My feeling is a lot went on around the 2012 time, but not in the ways in which we could see it and understand it. That it was bigger than what we could grasp, bigger than what we could understand, and did not manifest in ways in which were these obvious things like big shifts or some kind of, you know, cosmic event or a UFO landing on the Prime Minister's lawn. You know, it was different than that. And yet a lot got taken care of during that time period. A lot did move on in that time. But yet, we still have to go through the process of this. And so now we've been through the bulk of 2013, an era, again, where it's been more change in 2013, in my opinion, than there was in 2012. That speed is keep going, that speed of change and momentum is happening, and a new unfoldment is taking place. In the middle of that, unfortunately, we see the chaos. That much change happening in that short a time creates a lot of tension. It's hard for people to handle that. Individually, people often feel a lot of emotional discord, emotional disturbance, things coming up within themselves, having to face off certain things about themselves that they put off for a long time, but just getting harder to put off. You ever feel that? Sense of overwhelm sometimes. Too much to do, not enough time. Can't get it all done. Feels like it's caving in on you. You ever experienced that? Well, never feel alone about that, because most people are, including me. It's part of the shift. It's taking us to that point and squeezing us in a little tighter inside so that we move up the spiral. We come into our newness. We finally complete out certain things that we've been working on a long time. We get that job done, and then we become the new. And then we have another level of co-creative power and ability to facilitate during these changing times. So it's not a bad thing, although it can be an awkward thing. So that's all part of what's going on right now. 2012 is over. My opinion, what I sensed when I started out this year, headed on the airplane to Australia, is that I started trying to tune into what I felt people might be feeling. And one of the things that came up for me was that they might be feeling a quiet disappointment. Not overt, but kind of quiet. So then what I saw happening is I saw a lot of people that came out of that, and then they said, well, you know, it didn't happen, so now we got to get serious about this, and this has got to change, and that's got to change, and we got to straighten this out over here and over there, and a lot of judgments came in, and people started railing against different systems and all that sort of thing, and then they started pressuring themselves and pushing themselves, thinking they had to get it done right now or the world was going to blow up. And then what I figured out is that that wasn't necessary. That what we needed more than we needed now was patience. We needed to manifest more patience. And then what I got on to was that the momentum of this changing energy, this shift energy, so to speak, that's going on is so strong and so powerful. I don't need to push anything. I need to relax into it. I need to find a flow with it. And the doorway to that flow is patience. Be more patient. Let things unfold. Let things unfold in yourself. Allow the new to come to you. Let things go through the natural process that anything as big as this would have to go through in order to create fundamental change. And find that ease and that flow with it rather than the push and the drive and they got to get it done tomorrow, that kind of thing. That's just, you know, a suggestion, a friendly suggestion of things that I've felt in myself and that I've been sharing with others, different places. Humanity has reached a critical juncture. We are on the threshold of a new stage of social, spiritual, and cultural evolution. You feel that in yourself. You see it happening in society. When you look at the news and you see all this aberrant behavior and this crazy stuff going on, do you remember that? it's important that we do, is that we are making choices, and we're making good choices in many ways. I believe that we've already crossed a line of where the shift has happened, in a sense, and we're playing it out now, letting it manifest, letting it come into coalescence. Hey, that's pretty good for a Southerner. Coalescence. What a word. Now, part of what's going on in the middle of all this is we've reached an era of heightened co-creation with the universal source, fueled by self-initiated effort. This isn't about the cosmic influences anymore. This isn't about the gurus anymore. This isn't about that. What this is about us and our self-empowered initiative to do the things that we feel we know to do inside, whatever our heart's telling us, wherever intuition prompts us to do, and then acting on that. It's through the individual self-initiated effort now that we will come into the new. It's on the people in many ways. The shift is bigger than us. It's bigger than the planet. But our role in it is dependent upon what we do individually and then collectively as a society. So it's down to that. That's to me, I can see where you would feel like, ooh, that's kind of bad news, because it puts a lot of responsibility on us. At the same time, it's good news because it puts us in a position to do it ourselves, and that is what's next. We will draw the next level of facilitation from wherever it comes from the energy we put out and the signal we put out for it. And that will come from us taking our next steps. So it's an interesting era, highly co-creative. The shift is happening anyway, whether we like it or not. It's bigger than us, it's bigger than Earth, it's a big shift. What we do have some influence on are two things. The timing of it, how fast or how slow this thing goes, and more importantly, how kind and gentle a process it can be. Those two things we have conscious co-creative input on. The shift's big, it's going to go down anyway. What I'm saying is that it can go down quick, it can go down slow, it can go down hard, it can go down easy. And what we do has a lot to do with those type of things. And that's the co-creative part. So that puts us in an interesting, fun position, doesn't it? And all we have to do is just do the things that we know to do, and what our heart's been telling us all along. It's not that big a deal. Most of you have been working on yourself for a long time, right, in different ways. How many of you have been involved in a personal growth process of some kind for 20 years or more? What are you doing in here tonight listening to this short, little, skinny Southern guy? Do you really need this? Well, that's because we want to be together, right? And we want to do something, we want to bring ourselves together. And that's why. And why I still enjoy these live events. I do a lot of different ways in which I speak and communicate. A lot of it's electronic and teleseminars and webinars and all that. And some of those groups are huge. I do like teleseminars that have 30,000 people on them, And I do them in my office. And I know that there's like 30,000 people that are listening to this thing, but I don't feel it. And I walk out of my office to use the bathroom, and nobody around the office even knows I just did it. It's like, he's going to the bathroom. Yeah. It was this huge thing that just happened, right? But live like this gives us a chance to connect heart to heart. And that's the beauty of it. And I think that's part of why you're here tonight. Now, if we're in this era and it's highly co-creative and we have this facilitation and we have to self-initiate, how are we going to do that? Well, I believe it's the activation of what we call at HeartMath the intelligence of the heart. Heart intelligence. Here's the definition from our founder, Dr. Shorty. Heart intelligence is the flow of awareness, wisdom, and intuition we experience when the mind and emotions are brought into a synchronistic alignment with the heart. You see, part of the shift is about new awareness and new intelligence. And part of that new intelligence package that's associated with the shift is heart intelligence. Heart intelligence is owned by HeartMath. What we've done is just put some language around it, some tools, some techniques, some technology, and underpin the whole thing with science to give that third-dimensional, verification of something much larger. It's part of the evolutionary imperative that's taking place during this course of the changes we go through. Part of what's happening. And we just do our part at HeartMath to try to help folks get onto that and tag into what they have inside themselves. So, here's another thing that Doc recently said about heart intelligence. He said, heart intelligence is transformational. It contains the wisdom that streams from our soul's higher information field down into our human system. It is accessed through intuition. And I'll talk a little bit more about intuition later. Now, I've been doing this work for a long time, about since Moby Dick was a minnow. And about 40-some years now since I got on to, trying to be a better person through the heart. And so, of course, in 40-some years, I've learned a few things. And what I'd like to do now is just to share a little of what I've learned. And to do that, I'll just do it for a couple minutes, a little soft music playing in the background. As I talk about heart, what I'd like you to do, invite you to close your eyes again if you want. See if you can feel some of these same things in yourself. First of all, we know that the physical heart is this amazing part of our physiology that reliably pumps blood through our veins and arteries from the time we're born to the time we pass. Most efficient pump that's ever been, beyond anything that's ever been created in a different way. And that's just one thing that the heart does. Today we know that the heart is a lot more than that, and I'm going to share research about that really soon. We know that the heart is actually an information processing center in our body, sending powerful healing commands to the brain and throughout the entire system, and that it's a lot more than just a blood pump. And that would be just the physical component of heart intelligence. There's also an emotional component to it as well. Think about the emotions that have been the most revered, the most rewarding, and they relate to the concept of heart, don't they? There would be emotions like care, compassion, love, forgiveness, appreciation, all related to this understanding and concept of heart. So there's an emotional component. There's also what I believe is a spiritual heart. The spiritual heart is where we connect with that part of ourselves, that larger self, where we connect with something beyond our normal. We connect with spirit. I'll call it generically spirit. And it's through heart and through the activation of heart and the qualities of heart, especially those emotional qualities, where spirit begins to merge more with our humanness, allowing it to manifest in our daily lives. There's also a very practical side of heart. I'll loop it back around now. Heart is the core of our authentic self. It's the place inside of us that when we make contact with that we do the things that we often think we can't. It's when we're connected to the intelligence of the heart that we move beyond our mediocrity. We become something better, something larger. And there are plenty of phrases in society about that, say those type of things. One of the main things, and last thing I'll say about it right now that I've learned about heart, is that it's my own best friend and my most reliable guide that I ever have for making decisions about things big or small. And that's what heart really means to me. So if you open your eyes, you can see some of the things that I've talked about. It's the core of your authentic self. It is a high-speed intelligence. It moves at an intuitive bandwidth. So it moves really very quickly, high speed. Greater discernment and intuitive clarity come from heart intelligence. It gives us a deeper connection with ourselves and with others. Inspiration for emotions like the ones I mentioned. The ability to overcome obstacles. And lastly, it is where the hero within is born from that core of our authentic self. That's where it comes from the heart. That's where the hero shows up. That's, again, when we do the things we often think we can't. We exceed our own expectations. That's all what heart intelligence is. Heart intelligence is something we're born with. It is there all the time. It never really goes away. We go away from it. Through the normal societal programming, the third-dimensional realities, we get caught up in the roar of ambition and survival and all those kind of things, and after a while we start living from the neck up. And we lose a certain connection to this part of ourselves where all these wonderful things happen. And it's okay, but occasionally we return to it. There are, times in our life when we make a heart connection, usually when something externally triggers it. That can be something wonderful that exceeds our expectation and goes beyond what we thought we were going to have, and we feel appreciative and joyous and connected and in love and all that. And that's the heart, just saying, hey, here I am, been there all along. And then there are those times in our lives when we hit the wall and we reach these places in ourselves where we are faced with some sort of challenge that we cannot figure out. A daunting challenge of some kind. It could be anything. It could be health-related or business-related, finance-related, relationship-related. whatever it is, we hit the wall, and when we do, and we try to figure it out the normal ways we try to figure things out and can't, what do? We begin to dig a little deeper. That's when people will pray, or they will really sincerely and deeply meditate. Or if they're not into that kind of stuff, that's the time when they take that walk out into the woods, walk down the beach, where they're asking, what's it all about? What am I going to do? Or get in the car and drive off into the night looking for something inside themselves. And when people dig a little deeper, there's the heart. Hey, been waiting for you. And even when we go there, it doesn't necessarily come up with these crystal clear solutions to the problem, but what it does is begin to change our attitude and perception about those problems. The inner dialogue can begin to shift. At times like that, for me, I've had thoughts come up in the middle of these crises of one kind or another that would say things like, this is really tough, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But you know what? I've been in tough situations before, and I got through that. I'll bet you I'll find a way this time. That's the heart speaking, giving that reassurance and that self-security. Let us know that we will find a way. So it doesn't solve the problem, but it changes the energetic relationship to the problem and allows for new solutions to begin to emerge and gives us the resilience and the internal strength to meet the challenges that any of us can face in life. That's what heart intelligence is. So, I pitched it pretty good from an inspirationally philosophical tenet. But now we recognize when we started HeartMath, after 15 years of self-exploration on heart, and now saying we got something we feel like we need to share with the world, we want to put a heart-based system into the world that can have societal influence, big-time societal influence in all the major aspects of society. And we've accomplished that. But we recognize if we were going to do that, we better come up with a different way of approaching heart. Because heart had been talked about for thousands and thousands of years. The earliest writings I've seen about some of the same things I just said go back 4,500 years ago in the ancient Chinese. And all through history, they talked about it that way. It was to your country's credit, there was an English physician in the late 1600s, Dr. William Harvey, that published the first reliable research about the heart being a four-chambered organ pumping blood through the body. That was important. He did a great service. People that have written about Harvey have said that when his work was introduced and became popular, that heart lost its thought and thought lost its heart. And through the process of medical reductionism, we turned the heart back into this blood pump, right? But yet, point to yourself. Right now, point to yourself. What did you just do? When I go home, I'm flying back home tomorrow. When I get home, I'm not going to walk in the house and say, you know, to my wife, honey, I'm back and I love you with all my liver. So there's natural things we do that relate to sort of an intuitive connection, whether it's sort of social programming through the way we communicate, the lexicon and all that. It shows up all over the world. People have these same references, so something's in the energetic field that keeps us connected to recognizing heart as something more. But we said, okay, if we're going to put a heart system out and it's going to have any impact and go past the sort of the box that it's been in, we have to come up with a different way of doing it. And so we recognize that in 20th and 21st century society that science carries an awful lot of weight. When science says that something's real, it gives an empirical understanding that puts more energy and power behind belief. I can describe this table to you, but if you can see it and I can touch it, it's more real. So we use science to build a bridge from the philosophical to the street. Our science was never designed to take the heart out of heart. What it was designed to do is allow people's minds to go ahead and believe in something they already had inside. So what I'm going to do now is share a little of the scientific research. If you want to really dig into the research part of HeartMath, go to heartmath.org, our nonprofit. That's where all that is. And research papers and all kinds of reference things published in major mainstream journals, American Journal of Cardiology, American Journal of Stress Medicine, Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine, Harvard Business Review, the list goes on of published research. So you can get all that. What I'm going to do is share a little chunk of it that's a real important chunk. Because what Dr. Roland McCready, our head of research, and his team and other researchers around the world did was put together a story about the physical heart that characterizes it very differently than what we have known before. And put it together in a way that it can be explained by someone like me who's not a trained scientist. I'm not a trained scientist. I was actually called one time in the media a scientifically informed comedian. Another journalist called me a hillbilly with an expanded vocabulary. I said, great, I've got an expanded vocabulary. So before I go there, I want to read one quote to you. I forgot I had this slide in there, but I think it's fun. This is Steve Jobs, one of the great minds of our time, about 2 years before his death in a speech he gave at Stanford University. And he said this: your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by the dogma which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. A statement not long before man was passed away who knew he was headed that way. One of our great minds of our time, characterizing heart and its importance that way. Everything else, he said, is secondary. So, heart-brain communication. This is a story of how the heart is more than a physical pump. We know today that the heart is actually sending information to the brain and to the rest of the body in 4 different ways. The communication that it sends is essential to everything else in our body. An example would be brain function is critically dependent upon signals coming from the heart. We're an integrated system, so this isn't about heart's better than brain or mind and all that. It's an all-integrated system, but what we know now is that the mind is a big winner when we make contact with the heart. It benefits. And the heart communicates in 4 different ways, and I'm going to describe those 4 ways to you now. First of all, the heart has a nervous system. It's a very complex nervous system studied through a field called neurocardiology. There are neurocardiology conferences and there are scientific journals and books about neurocardiology. This nervous system is next to the brain is the most complex nervous system we have in our body. And it communicates and talks to the brain up here through a nerve pathway that starts out in the heart and then travels up into the lower brain centers, passes right through influencing the mid-level brain where the limbic system is, where a lot of our emotional processing takes place, and then terminates all the way up in our higher perceptual thinking, the neocortex. That's where that nerve pathway ends. So it's sending information back. Now, when I was in school, I didn't do very well, but somehow I'd gotten the impression that the brain was like controlling the heart. Well, that's not true. What's happening is that the heart is sending a lot more information to the brain than it ever gets from the brain. The brain only sends timing information down to the heart. So the heart's sending a lot more information this way. But what we have happening is a neurological conversation taking place between our heart and our brain. This is where it's located in the heart. The nervous system is made up of neurons, proteins, and support cells distributed through the anatomical heart here. I just said neurons. The brain has billions of neurons, but they found neurons in the heart. About 40,000 neurons approximately exist in your heart, which is the same thing as brain cells. What's interesting about those neurons is that most of them are what's called local circuit neurons, which are the same kind of neurons responsible for memory. And they exist in the heart. That's your first way. The second way is a biophysical communication. If you place your finger on your wrist, you feel your pulse. What is the pulse? The pulse is actually a wave of energy created by the squeezing of the heart muscle that then pushes the blood through the veins and the arteries. It's called the blood pressure wave. Blood pressure waves obviously travel through the entire system, which is how blood gets there, and they influence all kinds of bodily functions, through the changes in pressure inside of the body. One of the things that they influence the most is the electrical activity in our brain. The electrical activity in our brain is synchronized to changes occurring in the blood pressure wave. So as the blood pressure wave modulates, so does the electrical activity in the brain. That's the second way. And the third way is one of these things that was out there in the research literature, but who knew? And so part of what our researchers did, in addition to a lot of their own research, was they found other pieces of research or knowledge, and they connected the dots. The third way is biochemical. In 1983, who knew? The heart was actually reclassified as part of our hormonal system. The reason was they found it produced hormones. One of those hormones is called atrial peptide. Atrial peptide has several jobs, but one of its primary jobs is to reduce the release of the stress hormone cortisol. I find that interesting. Got a hormone being produced by my heart trying to back down a stress hormone. I think that's cool. It also produces another hormone that's become popular for some reason called oxytocin. Ever heard of that? See, I've got to meet the PR agent for oxytocin. You know, this person's good. Oxytocin is generically called the love hormone. It's produced in greater amounts when we're in a loving state, like a mother with a young baby. I recently saw a television show where there was a scientist who'd been doing studies on oxytocin production, linking it to trust and empathy, showing increases in oxytocin production when we were in empathetic states or we were put in a situation where we were required to trust someone. Oxytocin production went up. And that's your third way, biochemical. So these first three ways are what's classified as hardwired biological communication pathways. They're well documented, well studied, well researched. What HeartMath's done is bring that more to, to conscious awareness. The fourth way is where it gets really interesting to me. It's an energetic communication. Our hearts are electrical organs. The heart produces by far the strongest source of bioelectricity in our bodies. 40 to 60 times more of that kind of electricity than the second most powerful source, which is the brain. This electrical energy permeates every single cell in our body. When you go to a doctor and the doctor takes your electrocardiogram, they place electrodes around your chest, and what are they picking up? An electrical signal. And they show the big spike, and it reloads in the big spike, and they look at that and determine something about the health of your heart. Well, they could literally get that signal anywhere on your body. Ear, toe, elbow, they could get it anywhere. They put the electrodes here because they get the strongest signal, closest to the heart, but they can get it anywhere. So this electrical energy is permeating every single cell in the body. Now, the signal is strong enough that it actually creates an electromagnetic field. This is not an aura, it's not subtle energy, this is very measurable electromagnetic energy, a very dense physical measurement. The possibility of the fields being a lot more do exist, and our researchers believe that they do. But this is something reliable and measurable, very empirical. An electromagnetic field, you can think of it kind of like radio waves, different frequencies and different channels and like radio waves that create an electromagnetic field. The field of the heart surrounds all of us in 360 degrees. And it is strong enough that it puts out enough power that it creates an electromagnetic field that extends beyond our skin out into space. In the book that I co-authored, The HeartMath Solution, we reported on another clinic's findings that said they detected the field 8 to 10 feet away. Our researchers used something called magnetometers, which they felt were more reliable research instruments, and they will stand behind 3 to 4 feet at just this one level. They believe it's way, way bigger than that it goes into quantum physics understandings and takes away the boundaries of time and space. But at the dense physical, third-dimensional Newtonian physics level, they say 3 to 4 feet. They'll stand by that. So we are all right now putting this field out, and we are interfacing electromagnetically through the heart. The collective of this room right now is all linking that way. It gets a little bit more interesting, I think. So think about this. An electromagnetic field has ingredients, the frequencies in the field. And you can measure those frequencies by using something called spectral analysis. Basically, you take a snapshot of the field, you analyze it, you determine what are the ingredients in the field right now, what radio stations are broadcasting in the field. And you can look at that. Now, in this view over here, we have a very jagged and irregular pattern, lots and lots of frequencies. None of them have much power. This is microvolts. None of them have any power, really, and there's a whole lot of frequencies happening. This is a picture of a person who we had asked in our research labs to feel the feeling or emotion of frustration. Does that look like frustration? What you have happening is you have a certain amount of available power. You know, the power is kind of finite in the field. This is much power, how's it going to be divided up? Well, you got a lot of competition going on here for that available energy. So you have a frequency fight happening internally. Now, this graph looks different, doesn't it? This, by the way, is called an incoherent spectra. This graph is different. Now we have the same available power, but it's being distributed differently. This is what's called a harmonic sequence. In other words, the frequencies are working together, and therefore some of those have a lot more microvolts. The power spectrum's up some. And so you have this wonderful curve that's happening, and you have a cooperative sort of energetic field that's taking place. And that's from a person who's done what? Feel what we fell together when we began the program, appreciation. This is called a coherence spectra. Now, what this really means is that we are literally broadcasting our emotions into the field environment, into each other through the electromagnetic field produced by our heart. What we're feeling is being broadcast. This thing changes all the time depending upon our emotional state. And so the question then becomes is what are we feeding the field? What are we feeding ourselves? What are we broadcasting to all of our cells? What are we sending outward? How's that affecting each other? How's my heart's field affecting the field of the brain? How does my field affect your field? How does the collective field of humanity interface with and relate to the energetic fields produced by the earth itself? This is the type of scientific inquiry we're involved in today. So those are your four ways: neurological, biophysical, biochemical, and energetic. Now, when all this heart-brain-body communication works really well, we enter a state called coherence. There's a medical term for that called psychophysiological coherence. What that means is that we enter this very organized state, both psychologically and physically. At a physical level, what happens is that all the major body systems are synchronizing to the rhythmic beating pattern of the heart. And they would be things like digestion, respiration, immune system response, hormonal response, brain function. All that's synchronizing to the heart. When the heart rhythms move into a very sine wave-like flowing pattern, all these systems sort of synchronize and everything starts working really efficient. Less energy is wasted, for example. It's healthy for us. It's a good physiological state. It improves things that would be related to mental function, like reaction speed time, visual field. We train lots of different people in HeartMath, and one of the areas we've trained in is athletes. You know, professional football players, golfers, tennis players, Olympic athletes go through HeartMath training. I was just in Sweden a couple of days ago, and the people over there have been training hockey teams in coherence building training. And they use our technology in the penalty box to get back into coherence before they go back out there to knock somebody upside the head. Yeah. But, you know, just examples of that. And we do coherence building training in things like the U.S. military, police forces, things like that. So very mainstream applications of this. There's a psychological component to it. Coherence is triggered by the activation of a positive emotion. When you feel love, you feel care, you feel appreciation, you're going to naturally go more towards this coherent state. Once in that state, you can sustain those type of positive emotions. They become more readily available. They flow to us. They're easier to get there when you're in the coherent state versus a chaotic state. So coherence sets up the emotional component as well. And then I'll take it a step further. It's not in any graph I have tonight, but I would say that coherent state is where that spirit begins to merge with our humanness. It comes into an ordered system and allows us to integrate deeper into our normal days in the coherent state. So one of the things about HeartMath training and about our technology is to engender more coherence in us, to help create a higher level of our natural coherence baseline so that when we start our day, we're more coherent than we used to be, allowing for the modulations and ups and downs and all around. And you can measure coherence, and you measure it through looking at another medical scientific term, heart rate variability analysis. See, I've turned that into a Californian kind of thing. See how precise that was? Before I moved to California, it'd be heart rate variability. But I changed it. Heart rate variability analysis. What that means is you're measuring changes in heart rhythm. Let me explain what heart rhythms are. We're not talking about heart rate. We're talking about the timing between heartbeats. To explain that, I will use a medical term. It's called kabump. You see on an EKG signal, you have that big load up and the heart goes kabump and it pumps and it reloads and then it goes kabump again, right? Well, between this kabump and that kabump, it could be like 0.356 seconds. Between the next two, 0.786. The next two, 437. You know, it's changing and varying all the time. It's supposed to. Everything we do really affects those changing heart rhythms. For instance, when I do that, my heart has had to speed up and go through a lot of calculations at super high speed in order to pump blood properly to compensate for the movement. Speech will do it, a noise will do it, lights will do it. So a lot of things affect variability. What researchers didn't really look at was the effect of emotional states. Our researchers did. A couple things happened that were interesting back in the early 90s. They were working with the grandfather of heart rate variability, Dr. Donald Singer from Northwestern University. Dr. Singer had never looked at the emotional effects of heart rate variability, and he did not believe that heart rate variability could be changed constantly. He felt it was an involuntary response that could not be modulated. Our researchers differed. He came to visit our labs. They sat someone down in front of a heart rate variability monitor. They asked them to modulate their heart rate variability patterns intentionally. He sat there and watched it happen. He asked, "How are you doing that?" And the person said, I'm feeling different emotions. I'm feeling appreciation versus frustration, etc. And he watched it happen in front of his eyes. Dr. Singer was the man responsible at the time for getting us published in the American Journal of Cardiology. We could never have done that without a Dr. Donald Singer on that research study and on that paper, because he saw something he didn't know. So one of the biggest things that affects heart rhythms is emotion, what we're feeling. Here's what it looks like when you do heart rate variability analysis. Across these horizontal axes here, we have 200 seconds of time. Not a lot of time. Across the vertical axis, we do have heart rate. Now, you see a lot of up and downs here. Well, this is not like an EKG signal. In other words, this little spike is not a kabump. It just means the heart sped up, and then it started slowing down. There'd be a couple heartbeats on that line right there. But what you see happening in the top view is the heart speeding up and then slowing down, speeding up and slowing down, speeding up and slowing down. A lot of timing changes happening in a short amount of time. The person is sitting in our research labs, they're not moving, they're not talking, none of that's going on. We've asked them to feel frustration. What you have happening is an internal war. The part of our physiology that makes it speed up is called the sympathetic nervous system. The part that makes it slow down is called the parasympathetic. So you got the sympathetic saying, "We're going to speed up." Then the other part says, "No, we're going to slow down." And the sympathetic says, "No, I told you once, we're going to speed up." The other says, "And I told you, we're going to slow down." And you have this back and forth going on. Now, when that happens inside the body, it's not good for your health. When it's being triggered by an emotion. Walking, moving, that's natural. You want a lot of variability. You want your heart to have a lot of speeds it can operate in. It's healthy. But when it's stress-related emotions and all that, and you're jacking up the system and you're creating this kind of pattern, it puts a lot of wear and tear on your physical heart. It puts a lot of stress and strain on your nervous system. And it also triggers the release of hormones into the body that aren't good for us when they're out of balance, like too much cortisol or too much adrenaline. And you can see those hormone productions triggering off of this kind of heart rhythm pattern. The bottom view looks different, doesn't it? Now we have the heart speeding up, speeding up, speeding up, and then at a certain point it naturally releases, begins to slow back down, and then it comes back up the curve again, it's speeding up and slowing down. It's like a flow, a synchronized, ordered flow that's happening inside the body. This is the same person a couple minutes later. What have they done? They've gone from frustration to feeling appreciation. Their physiology responds. Heart rhythms become smooth and ordered. A different pattern. This is what coherence looks like, high coherence looks like when you measure it, looking at heart rhythms. That's what it looks like from a measurement standpoint. This is healthy. It's good for the heart, good for the nervous system. It triggers the release of hormones in the system that regenerate us. You ever heard of DHEA? You ever heard of that hormone? Anti-aging, vitality hormone? That, oxytocin, hormones like that are produced in greater amounts when this kind of heart rhythm is prevalent. So it's a healthy state. Another way that these rhythms impact us is the brain. When we send this kind of signal to the brain, what it does is it begins to shut down the higher perceptual centers in the brain. The neocortex, executive decision-making, creativity, all that stuff begins to shut down. When that happens, the second level, the emotional, and the first level, the instinctual brain begin to take over. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Do we solve our problems when we're mad, angry, and frustrated? Do we? We may be motivated to come to a solution, but I don't think we get the solution through that way. I don't think we solve the world's problems that way. So what's happening is the higher perceptual centers aren't even available or as available. When we switch the pattern and we go to this beautiful sine wave-like pattern, the opposite effect occurs. It's called cortical facilitation. The other is called cortical inhibition. In cortical facilitation, higher perceptual centers of the brain become more active and alive. They open up. We're then allowed, we can see the big picture. That's when we have the ability to differentiate things, to really come into creative understanding and solutions. We have full capacity and access to our higher brain functions. As I said a little while ago, heart's a big winner. I mean, brain's a big winner when the heart's activated in a certain way. And this is just scientific understanding of that. Now, have you done okay with the science lesson? How did I do? How's my driving, okay? Okay, that was a science lesson, understanding the science of heart math. And the reason I share that in my presentations is that, as I said earlier, it allows us to have an empirical understanding of something that we kind of intuitively believe and that's been in our society for a long time. But now science is showing that, hey, there's a unique part of our physiology. That thing is acting intelligent. There's a lot going on there that we didn't know, and it creates a deeper level of connection to something we already have inside. And that's why we do research. That's why we share it, to give it that understanding. And that's why we can train in the U.S. military, or why we train in major hospital systems, or have thousands of health professionals using heart math. It's because we built that bridge. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And for more research, you can go into looking at the things on the website. Now, once we understood all this, we recognized the importance of helping people develop a new level of coherence in themselves. Heart rate variability equipment was research level equipment, very, very expensive, very cumbersome to use. And it didn't really provide anything other than looking at the actual waveforms, which a trained professional then needed to look at to determine what they were seeing. What we did is our scientists took it further. They built a huge database of heart rate variability data, and they analyzed that data, and they turned it into algorithms that could tell us whether we were in a low, medium, or high state of coherence. Low's not bad, it's normal. It's the kind of state we're in when we're walking and moving. Medium is much improved. High is like that, right? And so they put that together. We created software that's accompanied by sensors that works on computers and now on mobile devices that allow us to see our heart rate variability in real time, and then the algorithm kicks in, looks at those patterns, and tells us what our coherence levels are. The technology is called M-Wave, E-M-W-A-V-E. I spell that now. When we first came out with M-Wave way back a number of years, and I started talking about it on things like radio shows. First couple of times I did, my salespeople would show up over and said, "Were you on a show today?" And I'd go, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, why you talk about Amway?" People calling us up saying, "Heard you got an Amway thing going," you know. And so I started spelling it out, you know. But it's called M-Wave. There's a version that works on computers. This technology works the same. It's different form factors. Computer-based system has back-end database where you can have multiple users. A lot of health professionals and other type of professionals use that. There's the M-Wave 2, which is a little handheld device about the size of a cell phone. It measures things the same way. It shows you your coherence level by a light changing color on the top of the device. It has software with it too. You can plug that in, upload your data from when you were out, you know, doing it in the world somewhere, and see what it looked like later. That's what the desktop looks like. That's a little picture of M-Wave 2. There's another picture of it. And then the big innovation jump that we had this year is we now have the same type of technology in a very robust form for Apple devices. iPhones, iPads, iTouches. We have what's called Inner Balance Trainer. You have a sensor that you buy that you plug into your phone or your pad, and then you have full heart rate variability and the same type of data analysis on your mobile device. And that's never been done. And that's really cool. So for those that don't have iOS devices, we have the others. But for those that do, the Inner Balance Trainer would be my recommendation. So what I want to do now, if I may, is I'd like to do a real-time demonstration of this. And the reason I will do it is to show you how the science that I just shared with you about heart rate variability and coherence and all that, how that plays out right in the moment. Rather than a static graph, we can do it in real time. Would you like to see that? Okay. I'd like a volunteer, please. I'd like to come up and be the volunteer to allow me to put a sensor on your ear. This guy's like making sure I pick him. Come up, young man. And your name is?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, good to see you.
Hi.
What I'd like you to do, Jonathan. Okay, what's happening now is the sensor's calibrating to his ear. It just takes a few seconds. And then at the bottom here, in just a minute, we're going to see his pulse. We see his pulse come on the screen now. That will go away after a few seconds. You want to see the pulse pattern look like that, and that indicates that the sensor is connecting to his ear properly. That's all that is. Up here, we are seeing Jonathan's heart rate variability pattern, his heart rhythm pattern, in real time. And as you can see, it's showing that he's in low coherence. That would be normal. It's okay. Now, Jonathan, what do you do for a living?
I'm a well-being practitioner.
A well-being practitioner, good. Does that ever get stressful for you?
Stressful day already.
Stressful day already, great. Well, don't worry about that. I mean, just because everybody here can see kind of where you're at and your emotional state, I really wouldn't worry about that because, listen. See, a crowd like this, listen, these people are seasoned. They've been doing personal work forever. They're seasoned, and a crowd like this wouldn't be judging you. They would just be assessing. God, why not do things like that? Anyway, you can see that instantaneously his heart rhythms are jumping all around, right? Because I've asked him about his day. He says it was stressful. Boom, instantaneously, physiological response. I just played a little game saying, hey, these people wouldn't, really wouldn't care about what your pattern looks like and all that. And instantaneously puts him in a little bit of an awkward situation. His physiology changes. How many times in our days do we get put in awkward situations? Or feel frustrated, or feel angry, or feel upset, or feel slighted, or whatever it is. And physiology is doing that every time we do. Now, like you sit back and get comfortable in the chair. What I'd like you to do is close your eyes. And now what I'd like you to do is to do what we did when we started the program tonight. I want you to focus your attention in the area of the heart. Just feel your attention shift like you're taking an elevator down from your head right to the center of your chest. And then do that heart-focused breathing. Breathe deep, but kind of normal. Don't force it, but pretend as if your breath is coming in and out right through the center of your chest. Now what I'd like you to do is to feel a positive emotion. It could be the love or the care you have for someone or something in your life. It could be appreciation for the good things in your life. Or maybe it's just a sense of well-being. Life is okay, life is good. Just breathe naturally and normally. Don't force the emotion. Let it be a soft, easy does it process. I'm going to stop this for a second. And first of all, I'm going to offer an apology. You see up here it says challenge level high. There's like 4 challenge levels on this thing, and for some reason my program has been defaulting to high. So he probably has more coherence at a normal challenge level than is shown on the screen, but we can certainly observe his patterns. But before we do that, we got to do something else. We got to appreciate him for coming up. Thanks. Thanks, my friend. Yeah, thank you so much. So you can definitely see the change in pattern. This is where he started. This is where I started picking on him. This is where I started to stop picking on him. This is where he began to do what the simplest of all heart math techniques. It's called the quick coherence technique, designed to get us into coherence quickly. Heart-focused breathing, the activation of a heart feeling. Now you see the pattern change, right? To more like the sine wave-like pattern. He did that. He made that shift. And that's how quick the physiology can change when we make contact like that with the heart, how simple it can be. And any of us, Jonathan included, can learn to go to that high coherence state with a little practice. It doesn't take long. Let me show you just for a second what's possible. The red line is called an artifact, and that would mean that the sensor itself has disconnected a little bit. Like when he moves around a lot like that, the sensor is real sensitive. And what happens is it will cause that little red artifact to show up. It's not indicating that he's got a physical problem. It's a good idea, right? Hey, look, I got a cell phone. So, Jonathan, that's your cell phone? Okay, I'll give it back to you, maybe. Yeah, hold on one second. You can come get it now if you like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start this, and I'm going to put it on a normal challenge level for starters. and I'm going to show you what's possible.
Message on your screen.
Good. We got all kinds of technological advantages tonight. I think you get the idea, right? Whereas I don't have to like go away and close my eyes and go off. I can look around the room and see what's going on. I'm in the middle of doing this thing up here. I got an elevated heart rate, I'm sure, just because I'm moving, running around, and that sort of thing. But you can learn to move right in. Getting a coherence does not require relaxing. Relaxing can be good, but coherence is about ordering things. It can be done in the midst of daily activity. So a lot of what we do at HeartMath is coherence building, training of various kinds, and a lot of applications for that. The technologies here, HeartMath UK offers it and offers training around it, and I think they have demo units here. I'm not sure. You may be able to try it tonight before you leave, depending upon time and all that. But I need to move now into some other things. I have a lot to cover in the next, say, 30 to 40 minutes with you. One of the aspects of heart intelligence is the introduction and readily available aspect of intuition called practical intuition. Intuition taken out of being just the aha moments when we experience something grandiose or discover the next thing. It's the intuition that we apply in our daily living, how we navigate through life. That's what practical intuition is. Intuition is really, it reacts faster than the mind can conceive and bypasses standard thought process. I got my greatest definition of intuition from a waitress one day, when I was sitting at a table talking to some guy about intuition, and she overheard it, and she was over there cleaning the table, and she said, "Oh, I know what intuition is." And I said, "Oh, really, what is it?" She says, "It's knowing what you know without knowing how you know it." And you got it. She's been quoted a jillion times since, because it bypasses all the thinking and comes to what? A feeling, a knowingness inside yourself. It's not so cognitive. It's faster than that. Logical, linear process, that's important. We make a lot of decisions, run our lives, our businesses, etc. We need all that. But there are times when intuition can come in and kick in and give us the guidance system that we need for sort of moving through life in a different way. And intuition is becoming more readily available now. It's part of the shift, part of what's coming in, more accessible to us than ever before. This is a Doc quote. "Intuition is like energetic gold that unfolds our insights, giving us a greater understanding of ourselves, others, issues, and life." Intuition shows up in different ways in a practical sense. It's sometimes that sort of inner nudge we get about certain things. We kind of know we ought to be talking to them or getting that straightened out, or we know we need to change here or do something different there. So that internal nudge that we get inside is really more of our intuition speaking to us a lot of times. You know, wanting us to change, wanting us to move around a little bit, wanting us to take on something new. All that's practical intuition. Practical intuition would manifest in things like knowing you need to have a conversation with someone about something, but sensing the timing. Any of you have to ever hire people in your businesses? Well, in the United States, they got laws. You can't even ask questions would seem normal. You can't ask somebody, "Are you married?" You can't ask somebody, "Do you have kids?" You can't ask things like that. You have to look at a resume, sit down and have a conversation and stay within certain hiring guidelines so there's no, no problems there, no labor law stuff. So what do you have to do? You can look at resumes and they can all look, like they're all qualified or whatever, but at some point you have to decide, is this the right person for this job in this culture? And you do it in a certain way, don't you? That's practical intuition. That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be all grandiose and mystical. Now, I'll share an interesting study with you about intuition. It's published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. It's a very large study, very complex, very expensive study. Here's the way the study worked. Test subjects were placed in front of a computer, and there were a lot of body metrics were being captured while they were in front of that computer. Brainwave, heart, skin, lots of different things. Huge amount of data coming back off the test subject. What the test subject did is the computer was loaded with images. The images were either very horrific or very beautiful. Two kinds of images, horrific or beautiful. The computer randomly selected the images. In other words, nobody knew what images were. Well, they weren't programmed. The computer didn't even know. It's a random selection of images. The way the test went was like this. The screen would press a button and there would be a 6-second blank screen. Then the computer would display the picture for 3 seconds. Then the screen goes blank again for 10 seconds. And then they're instructed to hit the button again. There's a 6-second delay, 3 seconds of picture, screen goes blank again, where the pictures are coming up randomly, horrific pictures or beautiful pictures. While this is going on, all this data is being collected from the body. Now, when the scientists began to decode the data, they found some very, very interesting things. What they found is that in many cases, the physiological response to the upcoming picture took place 6 seconds before the picture appeared. The body was doing what it would normally be doing if the picture was on the screen, but it wasn't. 6 seconds before. Here's an interesting thing. I was on a plane not long ago with Roland McCready, our chief of research, and he said, yeah, but think about this. He said, 6 seconds is what we know because that was the research protocol. What if it could be going on way before that and we don't know it? But the research protocol was set up for that 6-second delay from the button push, and they saw time and time again that the physiology was responding to the upcoming picture before it was there. Now, it got even more interesting. Then they began to look at the data more deeply, and they began to look at what was taking place inside the body, the information traffic occurring in the body, and what they found was astounding. They found that the first physiological response to the picture that wasn't there was the heart. The brain was second. A second and a half later, and about a second and a half before the picture showed up on the screen, the two coupled at a frequency level, then the picture got there. But it was the heart first, then the brain, picking up the picture. Now, what this says is that these effects suggest that intuitive processes have access to a field of information that is not limited by the boundaries of time and space, the energetic or spiritual heart. They went on to say in the research summary that such intuitive experiences suggest that some aspect of our perceptual apparatus is continuously scanning the future. That we have this capacity that we don't know about, and that's going on all the time, which is sometimes why we sense things and why we make decisions based on what we sense. It's really something that we have that's available to us, but we're refining it. As we evolve as human beings, we are coming into new aspects of ourselves that are already there. New abilities, new talents. It doesn't mean they have to be mystical. They don't have to be psychic necessarily, any of that, but these sensitivities are coming into play. Would that not be part or example of part of what the shift would be? What would new intelligence look like? This is an example of a possibility. An interesting research study and more to go. The last thing I'll say about it is developing heart coherence accesses the intuitive discernment and problem-solving capacities needed for addressing social, environmental, and economic challenges. It's through the intuitive aspect of heart intelligence that we will, in fact, discover ways through these challenges. In many ways, the solutions are already there. We have to find them. We have to see them. We have to see through the veil, so to speak. I'll give you one quick example of something that was there all along that changed the world. What was the most important discovery of the last, say, couple hundred years? What would you say? Internet. Okay, what else? Sorry. What? Do I have to tell a joke or something now? It's like, what is it? Space? Going to space? Okay. Okay, let me tell you what I think it is. Electricity. Without electricity, none of the things you said would exist. Electricity changed the world. We lived for thousands of years in, dark nights and all that. And we didn't have anything like the internet. We didn't have cars. We didn't have trains. We didn't have phones. We didn't have any of that stuff until there was electricity. Everything you see in this room right now is being fueled by the discovery of electricity. This computer, these lights, all that stuff. The civilization growth that happened, the sophistication of the civilizations directly relates to the discovery of and application of electricity. Guess what? It was there all along, right in front of our face, but nobody saw it for 5,000 years of civilized culture. Then when they did, boom, huge amount of growth. What are we not seeing now? And this is just an energy example, but what in other ways that we don't see yet? I think it's there. I think we're coming to understanding it and seeing it through the development of intuition born from connection to the heart's intelligence. Heart energetics. I've already shown that the heart is an energetic organ that produces an electromagnetic field that changes depending upon our emotional state. Here's some other great examples. Research conducted in our laboratories confirmed that when an individual is in heart coherence, the heart radiates a more coherent electromagnetic signal into the environment that can be detected by the nervous system of others, people, and animals. We've seen that when people in a coherent state, other people and animals and things can sense that. Here's an example. There's several. I'll share one with you quickly. This is a story of Josh and Mabel. Mabel was my dog. Josh is the son of Dr. Roland McCready, the director of research. This is an old picture. Josh is much older now. The dog's not with us. But there was an after-school program for HeartMath staff's children that was some teachers conducted that was held at my house. So after school, Josh would come over to my house for his after-school program. He bonded with Mabel. Roland would come by to pick Josh up to take him home, and he one day noticed this bond, and he decided, I wonder if anything's going on I can measure. He took Mabel to his research labs. He shaved the hair off her and put electrodes on her and put a portable heart rate variability monitor on her. He placed Mabel in one room and Josh in another, and Josh had a Holter recorder on. He brought Josh into the room with Mabel. There was no physical contact. He didn't pet the dog. In other words, Josh goes into the room. This is it. This is like Josh's heart rate variability pattern. Before he enters the room, there's Mabel's. Josh enters the room, coherence happens, Mabel's happens at the same time. Energetic synchronization at a frequency level seen through the heart rhythm patterns between the boy and the dog because of a bond of love. Josh leaves the room, Mabel doesn't like it. There you have it. We've done this with other things, women and horses, a lot of stuff like that have been done, showing an energetic connection that can be, I took the graph out tonight just to save time, but a woman sitting in the edge of a corral with horses that have a monitor on her, she does a heart-focused technique at radiation to the animals, and they go into coherence with her. Here's another interesting study. 4 people taken into a room, each sitting in front of an M-Wave desktop like I demonstrated with. 3 of those people know HeartMath and know HeartMath techniques. The 4th knows nothing and knows nothing about the study. Neither do the other 3. The 3 are instructed to go into a coherent state and then to radiate that state to the 4th individual. What happens is the 4th individual is not coherent. They begin to radiate and go into coherence, and guess what? Without doing any technique, the 4th one goes into coherence, the one that knows nothing. An energetic connection and sensitivity is being picked up. The 3 generating coherence created a coherence in the 4th. Again, I said earlier in the night when I first started this interconnectivity between all living systems, I'd explain that out a bit more. Here's another one. This is amazing. This has been replicated in over 70 labs now. You take a DNA sample, you expose it to a low-level magnetic field, and the conformation of the DNA changes. You then take that DNA sample, you sit it down next to other vials of DNA that are not touching, and you leave it there for 18 hours, and 98% of the conformation changes that occurred in the DNA that was exposed to the electromagnetic field take place in those other samples. How does that happen? There's an energetic transfer at very, 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 very subtle levels that's occurring, which is another example of interconnectivity going on between all living systems, even at that micro level of DNA. 70 labs have done this. This is not pseudoscience. This is happening, showing that this is occurring. Now, where are we going with this? Well, the thing that excites me the most about HeartMath is the Global Coherence Initiative. It's a part of our nonprofit. It's an organization. It's a part of our nonprofit, part of HeartMath. Global Coherence Initiative Its mission is it's a science-based co-creative project to unite people in heart-focused care and intention in order to facilitate a shift in global consciousness from instability and discord to balance, cooperation, and enduring peace. So what we're doing is bringing people together from all around the world using their heart focus and their care and their intention to help shift consciousness. We're talking about it now from let's work here. Let's work at the top end. Let's work in the consciousness field. Let's change that field and watch it change down here. Now, there are thousands of groups around the world doing something similar. You get the emails, and you're probably part of the groups, right? Synchronized meditations around the full moon, prayers, all that sort of thing. The internet, one of its great advantages is it allows us to connect that way. So a lot of things like that. We're just doing our part. We're not trying to be the biggest game in town. We're just trying to do our part. So we have about 57,000 members. They come from over 100 countries. When you become a member, which is free, you go to the Global Coherence Initiative website, you become a member, and then you start getting access to interesting research information. You get the updates on what we're doing. You get, you're on a list where we send out what's called care focuses. When there's a planetary event of some kind that we feel warrants, significant energy facilitation, or every full moon we do it, we send out a message and we have a suggestion. And it's recorded. You can listen to the audio of it. You go into a place on the site called the Care Focus Room, and in there's this beautiful globe sort of spinning and circulating. And within that globe, there's been a technology embedded in it that marks your internet provider address. Doesn't mean your house. It means where your internet provider is in your area somewhere. And it puts a gold marker on the globe. So when you go there and you see the globe and it's turning, you see all these gold markers all around the world, you go, there's like 20 people or 200 people here right now doing what I'm doing. And they're from all over the planet. It's a good feeling. That's just an example of what happens with Global Coherence Initiative members. Now, because it's HeartMath, we decided to bring some science to the party, part of who we are. So what we're doing is we're testing some things. We're testing 3 hypotheses. First of all, we're looking at the hypothesis that all living things are interconnected and we communicate with each other via biological and electromagnetic fields. Just describe some of that. The second hypothesis, not only are humans affected by planetary energetic fields, but conversely, the Earth's energetic systems are also influenced by collective human emotions and consciousness. It's a big leap. We're testing. Much of the planetary field environment is made up of the collective consciousness of the inhabitants. In other words, our hypothesis is that consciousness field and the Earth's energetic fields are a result, really, of what we're thinking and feeling in many ways. The third one is that large numbers of people intentionally creating heart-coherent states of care, love, and compassion and appreciation will generate a coherent standing wave that can help offset the current planetary-wide wave of stress, discord, and incoherence. You get what that means? Coherent people coming together, becoming what we call coherence builders, people operating in another baseline of coherence, joining together and putting that into the field can make a big difference. It isn't even about big numbers. It's about how coherent the numbers are. That is the difference. And that's heart intelligence added into the mix. And that's what we're testing. How are we testing that? Well, first of all, we're looking at other research that's been around for a while. Here's an interesting statement by Dr. Franz Hallberg, University of Minnesota, father of chronobiology, who recently died about 2 months ago. He said this: "It has become increasingly clear that invisible magnetic influences emanating from the sun and earth affect life from birth to death." You see, the Earth has energetic fields. Think of them as part of nature, but energetic nature. They're part of the Earth as a living system. There are 2 primary fields: geomagnetic field, which is what a compass measures, etc., what navigation uses, that kind of thing, and then the ionosphere. Less dense than the geomagnetic field, starts just above our atmosphere, goes about 120 miles up into space. Protective layers around our Earth that are part of the Earth as an energetic system. Well, a lot of research has been done, and more is ongoing, showing that when these fields change, so do we. That there is an influence. Brain function, performance of tasks, blood pressure, heart rate, hormones, traffic violations, strokes, societal conflicts, all that have been linked to changes occurring in the Earth's geomagnetic field. That's research that's already been done, well documented. Geomagnetic disturbances evoke emotional storms. A lot of people feel more of this. And right now we have a lot of that going on because of a high level of solar activity. One of the major influencers of these fields is the solar activity. And so you can feel a lot of this sometimes. There's a lot going on there. But the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere have a lot to do with that. Also, bursts of human creativity correlate with solar activity. The periods of greatest levels of human flourishing, creativity in science and the arts were clearly shown to occur during solar activity peaks. So this is like, what this is saying now is this is a neutral deal, right? You have an influence, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It's what we do with it. Going back to something I said at the beginning of the program, an era of co-creative, heightened self-responsibility. What do we do with all this? There's all kind of influences happening. It's what we do with it. Some of the greatest times in the history of our world have been at heightened solar activity, so it's not bad. So here's an example of some of the other things that occur. This is mapping solar cycles. So solar cycle lasts about 11 years. We are currently in solar cycle 24. Solar cycle 24 has been predicted to be one of the most active solar cycles we've ever had. Actually, the sun itself is becoming more active as we go through time. It's been in a relatively quiet period for 5,000 years, and it's cranking up now. And yet, this solar cycle has not proved to be as active as they thought, but we're about halfway through it. But this is solar cycle 22 and 23. You can see this is the solar activity, and then right here, boom, this is the Iraq-Kuwait deal, in here. Goes back down, then we have 9/11 here. Back down, then you have other events like Mubarak resigns, Libyan civil war, bin Laden killed, Gaddafi killed. Spikes in the solar activity. You can see a direct correlation to some major planetary events and the solar activity having been heightened at the time. Now, the last thing I want to say about that is that more and more people are realizing that solar and universal energetic influences are part of a natural cycle. They are not out to get us. These influxes can be a great add-on to humanity. We still have to take responsibility for our own energy and use this creative influx to better manage our day-to-day challenges such as irritation, impatience, frustration, anxiety, etc. So we're still in the same boat. We've still got to do it no matter what the sun does. We still have to be responsible. But there's more of that type of energetic influence all the time. Because as solar activity increases, what it does is it impacts these energetic fields, and they're like resonators, big giant resonators, and they influence frequencies in us. In the ionosphere, for example, some of the same frequencies that are in ranges of the ionosphere are exactly the same frequencies produced by the human heart and brain. There's an energetic connection at the frequency level between those fields and us. So, there's an example of what the geomagnetic field looks like, North Pole, South Pole. When you see the Aurora Borealis, for example, it's solar radiation hitting the poles. It causes the colors and the lights and all that. Here's the ionosphere, protecting us from things like solar wind and all that. These fields have to be there. Without them, there could never have been life or would not be life. They protect us from natural things in space. They're, again, part of the Earth. So, hypothesis. The Earth's magnetic fields are carriers of biologically relevant information that connects all living systems. We affect the global information field. How are we looking at this? Well, we're listening to the Earth's energetic systems. And what our researchers have done is they have developed technology through working with other scientists, NASA scientists included, that can take very sensitive measurements of both the ionosphere and the geomagnetic field. And they do it from a ground-based perspective. And this has never been done before. Normally, this would be something a government or a big university would do, but we're doing it. So they're creating a network of these sensors. They'll eventually need 12 of them. Each sensor doesn't go straight up in its measurements. It picks up a curvature. You have about 12 of them strategically located. All the curvatures connect, and you get a picture of the whole. And that's what they're doing. Now, today, why would they want to do that? Well, a couple things indicate that the hypothesis may be true. Let me share a couple of those very briefly with you. I have about 10 more minutes, I think. One is random number generator analysis. Ever heard of that? Dr. Roger Nelson, University of Princeton, set up these random number generators, which are little computer devices that randomly spit out numbers and symbols used by researchers for statistical analysis. He noticed a long time ago that for some reason, every now and then, they become less random. He didn't know why. His intuition said, let's see if there's any correlation to what's going on in the world and why these things are changing. He didn't know how it could be, and we still don't know how it could be. But he set up a network of those around the world, and he's correlated major societal events with random number generator changes. Things like, in your country, Princess Diana's funeral was one where he saw statistically significant changes. Start and ending of Olympics, things like that. One day, when he went to his lab, he saw this huge, gigantic, statistically significant change, the biggest by far, off the chart, and anything he'd ever seen before, and he's never seen anything close to it since. What do you think that was? 9/11. He saw that on 9/11. Now, would you like me to make it a little spookier? The random number generators began to change 2 hours before a plane hit a tower. The system began to go through changes. That's what he saw. Another level of data, this doesn't prove anything, by the way. There was no formal experiment going on, and the causal link between how this could occur and that the fact that it does occur cannot be made yet. So it doesn't prove anything. Is it interesting? To me, it is. Here's something else that's interesting. The U.S. government has 2 space weather satellites parked in stationary orbits on each side of our continent. They are measuring solar wind, solar radiation, cosmic rays, those kind of things. They also look back at the power in the geomagnetic field from outer space. So what we have is the 2 satellites, red line, blue line. This is a normal oscillating pattern representing day and night. When the sun's radiating on the fields, they pick up more energy. This is night, blah, blah, blah. Day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night, blam, 9 a.m., September 11. Huge, gigantic spike in the geomagnetic field. There was no solar radiation, no cosmic rays, no flares, none of that stuff going on that day to cause that. Nobody knows why it was caused. Does it prove anything? Is it interesting? Right. And then look at the days afterwards. Look at the power. Look at all the energy in that field after 9/11 as compared to the normal pattern you would see before 9/11. Something was going on. Could it have been that mass human emotion, the billions of people feeling something that day, could have created changes in the field? Worth checking out, right? Now, we're checking it out by placing the sensor sites. This is approximations of where they need to be. Today we have 4 working sensor sites. One is in Boulder Creek, California, where I live. This is what one looks like when we dress it up and finish it off, make it pretty. It's in the Santa Cruz Mountains of Northern California. The second one is in Saudi Arabia. This is Roland McCready, our researcher. This is the concrete wall he had to build that he didn't know he had to build. Fortunately, he knew how to build one because this guy told him that if you don't build this wall, then camels are going to trample it. Wild camels. So he had to put it in there. So that's him putting a sensor site in. Now, this is a site we have in the UK. It was in Sussex, in Firle. It's now being moved somewhere close to Wales, we think, right? We're testing equipment now where it's going to be. We put it in a place on Lord Henry Gage's estate, who agreed that we could have a site there. He's one of the English lords. He's got this huge thing, 20,000 acres or 40,000 acres or something, so we put it way out, and we kept getting distortion in the signal. And the sensors are very, very sensitive, and what we finally determined is that even though supposedly it was miles away from anything that could affect it, there was a highway 3 or 4 miles away. They were picking up the vibration from the cars. And the reason they would pick it up is because the rock down there is so solid that the vibration could go through the rock. So we're having to move that one. The 4th one is in Alberta, Canada. There's a 5th site that we're going very soon now in the southern hemisphere in New Zealand, and a 6th site which is already funded that we're going to South Africa. So we're building the network, and we have scientists looking at data. This is an example of just some ionospheric data, kind of things they look at. What are they seeing? They won't tell me. This is empirical research. This is not slapping up a sensor in the backyard. We all stand around sending it some love and the needle moves. This is some serious stuff. And the implications are huge. We have a lot of important people that are a part of Global Coherence Initiative, famous authors and things. One of those is Jack Canfield, who's, Chicken Soup of the Soul guy and all that. And he told me one day, he said he thought this was probably the most important experiment in the history of the world. And I asked him why. He said, if this proves to be true, it'll show that everything we've ever done, all of our thoughts, our prayers, our intentions, our meditations, everything had an energy that could be measured. It's real. It takes that belief that we all have, and it still gives it that empirical understanding. So if we do this right, then we can maybe show something that would be revolutionary in many ways. But if we turn it into pseudoscience and they let me use it to sell tickets, it's not going to happen. But see, they know a little dude like me gets out there a lot. So they don't tell me as much as they probably would tell somebody else because they're afraid I'm going to talk about it. But I'm not. So we can't say anything about what we're seeing right now, but they will tell me that we are seeing dynamic changes all the time. And what do they mean? Where do they correlate? A lot of data's got to be filtered out to understand how the humans played a role in this. They're also doing a lot of research understanding more about the energetic connection and influence the fields have on us. And there's some great research already on the Global Coherence Initiative website. You can read about that. So that's what we're doing. So what we believe is that it occurs in groups, you know, the collective field environment occurs in groups with social and emotional resonance, like what tonight? That we have this energetic resonance with each other. We're socially and emotionally connected. We're here together to experience something unique to get, you know, with each other. We're creating a field that's having an influence on the larger field as we speak and as we sit here right now. It creates a self-reinforcing field of emotional energy which amplifies and increases beneficial effects. So I began the night by asking you to focus on your heart, generate appreciation, and I went on to say that, you know, I thought this was more important than we may realize, and then I started talking about how we're all interconnected and we live in this field that's reflecting back to us. That will be, you know, what we want and all that sort of thing. I'm taking this further now, showing that we are researching these things, providing empirical understanding. The way it works is the more coherent we get, the more it influences societal coherence. More people get coherent, just like the fourth guy in the room that got coherent when the other three were sending him heart. So we get coherent, it helps societal coherence. As society becomes more coherent as a whole, it impacts global coherence, and the cycle repeats. Then the more global coherence there is, it's easier for people to resonate with that. They make changes in themselves, and we have this cycle that's going on all the time. So every little thing we do, every thought, every feeling, every act of kindness, all the work we do on ourselves spiritually, the meditations, the prayers, all that stuff are important, and they're helping. They are helping, my friends, because they're creating this loop, and that's part of the greatest service that we do. Whatever we do externally in the world can be important as well, but the main service and most important service we all have, that we all do, is what we do inside ourselves and what we put into that field environment. That is the mission. Whether I ever wrote another book, got on another stage, or any of that, my mission would go on, and yours does as well, because it's all about the other, not about this. It's about what happens inside ourselves. The rest is gravy. The rest is the fun. But it's really that change inside ourselves that's the biggest service that we ever do. Creating a future world. Well, I'm going to share an ending in just a minute, but I will say this. If you have heard some things tonight that have touched your heart, my hope is that it has, and there's things that you would like to know more about, I don't want to leave you hanging with that. I'm going to suggest two things. There are many things, and I decided this morning to suggest two things. One is like, become a member of Global Coherence Initiative. It's free. You go there, you become a member, you join with a global community of people linking at the heart level to influence the field. glcoherence.org. I want to also thank, before I end, HeartMath UK and the London College of Spirituality for setting this up, bringing this event together. Thank you, Vaz, for that and for the great work you did and for the organization you put together. HeartMath UK are our representatives here in the United Kingdom providing training, products and services, etc. Valued partners, longtime partners with us. They got a site. Go check it out or go talk to them. They're here tonight. There are things you can do if you want to share HeartMath with others. They have the courses that allow you to do that and that sort of thing. And they can explain all that to you later. If you don't want to do any of that, there's some other things I'd like to suggest you do. I'd like to suggest that you use your heart's intelligence and practical intuition. Use that to create the future you want to see. That's where you can get the real insight and vision about that future. Use your heart intelligence and your intuition to do it. Be patient. Focus on being present in your current environment. Just be where you are and be as much there as you can. And be patient and let things unfold. Find a state of ease and flow with a rhythm of change. Change has a rhythm and flow. Learn to dance with that rhythm and that flow. Don't feel like you got to push and drive it. Find the rhythm with it. Do the dance. Let it unfold. And lastly, and if you don't remember anything else, whatever that dude said and all these graphs and charts and all that, be compassionate to yourself. Please, please, please do that. People need to do that more. Love yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. Recognize you're doing good things. You're doing the best you can. All of us are facing challenges. There are going to be good days. There are going to be bad days. When you find yourself disappointed in yourself and what you've done and your behaviors and where things are going, you start feeling sad about it all and that nothing's happening right. You're never going to get there and all that. Just go, whoa, wait a minute. Dude, yeah. And talk to your heart. And the heart will say, baby, it's okay. Everything's really all right. You just ease up there and recognize it's all okay. You're doing a good job. You're doing the best you can. And find that self-love and that self-compassion. So if you remember nothing about this and you walk in here tonight, you remember that, you'll make me happy on my last presentation of 2013. So, thank you. Thank you very much. So if you do those kind of things, you're going to find more of your true heart's purpose, and that unlocks the door for your next level of fulfillment. You'll become more of that solid, authentic, real, who you really are, not the part of us that we've assumed that we are, that we've spent the rest of our life protecting. You'll find that one that's real and deep inside. And lastly, doing so helps to create a heart-based world. So let me end tonight and end my time with you and my time on these stages, and let me do something that I'd like to do. I'd like to offer you appreciation. I want to thank you for some things, if I may. I want to thank you, first of all, for the work that you did to get to where you are today. Because I know you made sacrifices. I did, and I know you did. I know you had to change a lot of things. I know you had to go against the grain. I know you had to face challenges and obstacles to be who you are today. But yet you did it. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for what you're doing in the world today. Obviously, I don't know all of you. But my sense is of people who come to something like this is that you're doing interesting and amazing things, and you're serving and you're helping, and you're part of what's gotten us to where we are today. So thank you for that. Thank you for what you're doing today. And I also want to thank you for what you will do in the future. The future self, the future you, and your contribution to this world. I want to thank you for that, because it is people like you that truly represent the hope for this world. And all I want for you is to be fulfilled by that. Why I do what I do is I want people to have their fulfillment. I want them to find that place inside themselves where fulfillment shows up in ways that exceed expectation. And fulfillment can be inside or outside. It's like a package we come into life with, and part of the game of life is to unwrap the fulfillment package. And I want you to have the opportunity to do that. My feeling is, from my own experiences, the best way to do that is to do it from your heart and to find that fulfillment that's waiting for you and that you deserve. So let me end tonight in 2013, get a little emotional, just by saying thank you so much. Take care. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Let's all go out and be compassionate with ourselves. Good night.
Thank you, Howard.
My pleasure.